Hello, everyone. I'm Seanne Danielak. I'm a fourth year Falcone Board member. And with me today is Jane Goodrich. She is our secretary for the Leonard Falcone International Euphonium and Tuba Festival. Hi, Jane. How are you?
Hi, Seanne. I'm fine, thanks. It's a
Okay.
beautiful day.
Yes, it is actually. I want to just say that it's such an honor to interview you today. You are such a fantastic person, and I know this is going to be part of the 2021 virtual festival. We are really delighted to have you here, and I'm really excited to gain some insight on what you do in the festival because you do so much behind the scenes. So, my first question I think would be, how long have you been on the board?
Well, I and my husband, Doug, joined the board in 1999, I believe. And so it's been about 22 years.
Wow. Yeah, you've done so much in that time. I'm curious too, I know that you have so many responsibilities for the festival, and I'm curious on what some of those are. I only know a bit about what you do, but I know you do way more behind the scenes. So what are some of those responsibilities that you have?
Well, when I first started out on the board, there was a need for someone to take over advertising, soliciting advertising for the program. And we rely on those dollars to both print the program and hopefully have a little extra to go toward making the festival solvent, which happens sometimes and sometimes doesn't. But anyhow, so I worked with, took it over from Mike Fisher. And so he gave me his list of contacts. So the music companies, instrument makers, music publishers, mouthpiece makers. So all of those you just kind of do. And I did that till 2011, I think, when Randy Westmoreland took it over.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
well, go ahead.
Well, the second thing I've been involved with is preliminary applications. And then I was acting secretary, and then I've worked with program and updating the website. So.
Okay. Well, as far as you being acting secretary, how did that all come about?
Well, in I think somewhere around 2011, thereabouts, Deanna Swoboda had been secretary, and she had been the professor of tuba, it may have been low brass at Western Michigan University. And she was named president of ITEA, and that was a very time-consuming position. And so she asked for a leave of absence from there. And so I became acting secretary, and then eventually she ended up going to Arizona State University. And because at that point we met as a board in person in Lansing or East Lansing, it was difficult for her to make meetings. So I became secretary.
Got it. Awesome. Well, I'm wondering, you had mentioned a little bit about the application process. How has that changed over the years, or could you give us some insight on that part of everything?
Sure. Well, since the festival began in 1986, and we're now in 2021, the festival's been going on for some time. And so you would expect a lot of changes, and there have been. So some of this predates me, but I know kind of what was happening from historical documents. But so for about at least 25 years, we were accepting hard copy applications. So if someone wanted an application, they had to write a letter in and mail it through the US Postal Service and ask for an application, and they would get the materials, and then they would fill them out, and sometimes type, sometimes handwritten, and mail them in along with the preliminary application or an audio recording, started out on cassette tapes, and then CDs, and then eventually electronic submission. So the submissions would be mailed to a friend of yours, Tom Broca, who's board member still. And he would take and number the application form and put the same number on the tape so that they could be paired together with, once the judges listened to the tapes that didn't have any identification on them, they could figure out who it was who was going to proceed to the semifinals. So anyhow, he would take those to Mark Cox, who would make master copies by division and then duplicate those for the judges and mail them out. So if they didn't live close by. So that was
right.
I know. And then Tom would drive down to Lansing from Bay City at that point, and deliver the hard copy applications to Pete Marvin, who first would then put them into a database, data entry, or a spreadsheet, whatever he was using. And then I took that over at some point. So it's a really time-consuming job. I figured it took about 3 days to do all the data entry and another 3 days to proof it. Thank goodness Doug would help out with that. So couldn't have done it without another person. I'd go cross-eyed. But you can imagine it was difficult to read. At that point, we started having email addresses. So you'd have, is that a 0 or an O? Is that a 1 or a 7 or an L, lowercase L? It was incredible. And sometimes I'd try 3 different versions of the possibilities in order to find an email address that worked. It's, I used to do this blind thing of, is this you? Did you apply for? Anyhow.
Oh, I imagine that was such a process for you. Oh.
Yeah, it was funny. So talking about early days, some of the other fun things that I didn't run across, but the festival started out being a euphonium only competition, both artist and student level. And then in 1995, so the 10th annual included tubas. So we have 4 divisions, and we have the same 4 divisions now, although the number of students in each and the age requirement or cutoff for students has changed over the years too. And for the first few years, applicants were able to record a selection of music of their choice. So that worked for a while until we started getting more people applying. And then how do you judge one versus another when they're not playing the same piece? It was just, so then that was the start of required music for the festival.
Sure. Oh, wow. Well, I'm just curious, Jane, as far as, what do you find personally the most rewarding, as far as, through the whole experience leading up to and during the festival? What do you find the most rewarding?
I think it's communicating with the potential applicants, and then and or their parents, usually if they're students. Sometimes their teachers too have questions. Mm-hmm. And I think it's fun figuring, well, sometimes it's not fun, but and when reading questions, you learn to respond not only to the question that's asked, but the other information that's around it that you figure the person is going to need to know. So I try to end up, answering what they really need to know versus what they are asking. And so it's fun to watch and you have progressions of questions. Some kids are just asking, oh, well, what about this? And then you respond and, oh, well, thanks, that's wonderful. But what about this point? And so it's really, the personalities come across, and it's really, I enjoy it. And later on questions I may end up getting questions that really are referred to, they have to do with music. And so I'll refer that to Mark Cox, or it has to do with, typically after the semifinalists have been named, they have questions about judging, and I typically turn those over to Marty Erickson. So,
but even as a new member of the board a few years ago, I went to you, what about this? What about this? So
Well, it is,
you're
you've
kind
got
of
to put,
person
you
that-
have to put things together that, so they make sense.
Yes, you're amazing at that for sure.
No.
Yeah, we all
Thanks.
appreciate you. Yeah. So curious about the most dramatic change that you've seen over time through the festival in your 22 years of being.
Oh, my. I think it would have to be, since we were at Blue Lake, we hold the festival at Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp when it's not virtual, when they have improved their facilities, and they built Niblock and Blodgett. And Blodgett is what we call a building that actually has like 3 different names. There's Merrick Dining Room where the campers eat. And then there's the Student Activity Center, and that has meeting rooms and practice rooms. And then there's Blodgett Recital Hall. And the nice thing about that building is it is air conditioned, and Michigan summers can be hot. So, and humid. So it's nice to be able to play in and without your mouthpiece slipping down your chin. Anyhow, so that's nice. And it's also the Niblock has been used for the euphonium artists semifinals, and also the student finals of both divisions. And Blodgett Recital Hall is used for a number of things also, not only for camp during the time we're there, but for our guest artist recital, our adjudicators recital, and the tuba semifinals during the day.
Yeah.
So
it's a wonderful facility, as I was saying too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice. So I'm glad we've had the opportunity to utilize that.
Absolutely. Yes. Wondering, last thing I wanted to ask you for sure is, what is your greatest memory from this festival experience?
I think it would have to be, it's not a single memory, but it's a series of memories of all the incredible artists that I've had the opportunity to meet and talk with. The guest artists are incredible musicians, and it makes me want to go home and melt down my flute. But other than that, it's great to meet them and see them in as they're teaching and giving feedback to the competitors who have been playing their hearts and souls out, and hear these adjudicators, and they're just caring individuals who really want the best for the competitors. And it's low brass people overall are just good and unselfish people, typically.
Well, Jane, thank you so much for answering these questions today and being here with me. You are such an amazing person and such an incredible part of this board. And we all thank you for your contributions always.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And, all of us volunteers wouldn't commit our time and talents and energies toward this if we didn't find it rewarding, because if it weren't fun, we wouldn't be doing it. It's too much work.
It is so much fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for everything that you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, Jane.